It's a new episode of Building Battle, my dear friends. Noob from Minecraft with you. Today I'm going to make building challenge of fire station with my friends Pro, Hacker, and God. And while I will build it, I would like to tell you one funny story about the brave fire rescuers Dan, Sam, and Steve. They protect the most important buildings of the city from the evil flames of a terrible fire. Also, don't forget to press like button on this video and subscribe to my channel. Let's build. Dan, Sam, and Steve were chilling at the fire station, chatting about their latest gaming conquests. Suddenly, the alarm blared, startling them. Whoa, looks like we've got a fire to put out, Dan exclaimed, leaping into action. The trio rushed to the fire truck, their excitement palpable. As they arrived at the scene, a massive skyscraper loomed ahead, engulfed in flames. This is gonna be one intense mission, Sam shouted, gearing up for battle. The three friends exchanged a determined glance before charging towards the blaze, like heroes gearing up for a boss fight. The heat was unbearable as they approached the inferno. Steve adjusted his helmet, ready for action. Time to show these flames who's boss, he yelled, unleashing a torrent of water. Dan and Sam joined in, their teamwork impeccable as they fought to contain the fire, strategizing like seasoned gamers. Despite the danger, the trio found moments to banter amidst the chaos. These flames are no match for us, Dan joked, dodging a fiery burst. Sam laughed, we're like firefighting ninjas. Their humor kept their spirits high as they battled on, their banter echoing through the inferno. After a grueling battle, Dan, Sam, and Steve reached the heart of the blaze. The flames roared defiantly, but the trio was undeterred. Let's finish this, Sam shouted, leading the charge. With a final, heroic effort, they extinguished the last of the flames, saving the skyscraper from destruction. As the city cheered their heroes, Dan, Sam, and Steve celebrated their victory. We're the ultimate flame warriors, Dan proclaimed, high-fiving his teammates. They were hailed as heroes, their bravery and skill the talk of the town. Dan, Sam, and Steve's bravery inspired a new generation of firefighters, each one eager to join their ranks. They became legends, their story told and retold like a legendary quest. The city never forgot the courage of flame warriors. As Dan, Sam, and Steve returned to the fire station, they knew that more challenges awaited them. But with their friendship and determination, they were ready to face whatever came their way. The adventures of flame warriors were far from over, their bond stronger than ever. One evening, as Dan, Sam, and Steve were relaxing at the fire station, a mysterious call came in. Reports of a phantom fire haunting an old mansion on the outskirts of town had surfaced. Intrigued and excited for a new challenge, the trio geared up and raced to the scene. Arriving at the mansion, they were greeted by an eerie sight. The mansion was indeed engulfed in flames, but there was no sign of any fire source. This is like something out of a horror game, Sam exclaimed, scanning the area for clues. The trio cautiously entered the mansion, prepared for anything. Inside, they encountered strange phenomena. Furniture moved on its own, and eerie whispers filled the air. This place gives me the creeps, Steve muttered, his flashlight illuminating the dark corridors. As they explored, they discovered clues hinting at a tragic past and a vengeful spirit seeking justice. Their investigation led them to the attic, where they finally encountered the phantom. A ghostly figure emerged from the shadows, its eyes blazing with anger. We mean you no harm, Dan spoke calmly, trying to reason with the spirit. The phantom, however, was bent on revenge, unleashing ghostly flames at the trio. Dan, Sam, and Steve dodged the phantom's attacks, using their firefighting skills to combat the ghostly flames. We've faced fire demons in games. This is just another level, Sam shouted, strategizing their next move. With quick thinking and bravery, they managed to contain the phantom's flames and calm the spirit. As the phantom faded away, the mansion grew quiet. The flames vanished, and the mansion was no longer haunted. Dan, Sam, and Steve had not only saved the mansion but also helped the spirit find peace. They returned to the fire station, their adventure a tale to be remembered. As dawn broke, Dan, Sam, and Steve knew that more adventures awaited them. With their bravery and friendship, they were ready to face whatever challenges came their way. The Flame Warriors were always prepared for the next adventure, knowing that together, they were unstoppable. During the festival, a fire-breathing performer accidentally set a stage ablaze. Without hesitation, Dan, Sam, and Steve sprang into action, using their skills to extinguish the flames. Looks like the festival got a bit too hot, Sam joked, as they worked to contain the fire and ensure everyone's safety. As part of the festival, a firefighter challenge was organized. Dan, Sam, and Steve eagerly joined, ready to test their skills against other firefighters. The challenges ranged from obstacle courses to simulated rescue missions, each one testing their agility and bravery. "This is like being in a fire academy," Steve exclaimed, as they tackled each challenge with determination. At the end of the festival, the city honored Dan, Sam, and Steve with medals for their bravery and dedication. "We're like the knights of the city, protecting it from fire-breathing dragons," Dan remarked, humbled by the recognition. The trio celebrated their success, proud to serve their city as flame warriors. One night, a massive wildfire threatened to engulf the city. Dan, Sam, and Steve were called to action, facing their toughest challenge yet. The fire raged out of control, spreading rapidly. "This is it, boys, our ultimate test," Dan declared, leading the charge into the flames. For hours, Dan, Sam, and Steve battled the wildfire, their determination unwavering. The heat was intense, the flames relentless. "We've faced tough bosses in games, but this is on another level," Sam shouted as they fought to contain the inferno. Through sheer will and teamwork, they managed to bring the fire under control, saving the city once again. As the city thanked them for their bravery, Dan, Sam, and Steve knew that they had truly become legends. "We're like the heroes in those epic stories," Steve remarked, as they received praise from all corners. The Flame Warriors had proven that together, they could overcome any challenge, their bond stronger than ever. As they returned to the fire station, Dan, Sam, and Steve knew that their adventure was far from over. With each new day came new challenges, but with their courage and friendship, they were ready to face them all. The Flame Warriors were always prepared for the next adventure, knowing that together, they were unstoppable. One day, a call came in about a submarine that had caught fire and was sinking off the coast. Dan, Sam, and Steve were tasked with the daring rescue mission. "Time to dive into action," Sam exclaimed, as they prepared for the underwater operation. As they reached the submarine, they found it engulfed in flames, sinking deeper into the ocean. Without hesitation, they dove into the icy waters, their suits protecting them from the cold. "This is like a mission from a deep-sea adventure game," Dan shouted, as they worked to rescue the trapped crew members. With each passing moment, the situation grew more dire. The flames threatened to consume the submarine, and the crew's oxygen was running out. Dan, Sam, and Steve worked quickly, using specialized equipment to extinguish the fire and evacuate the crew to safety. "We've got to move fast, like speedrunners," Steve urged, as they raced against time. After a grueling effort, Dan, Sam, and Steve managed to rescue all the crew members, bringing them safely to the surface. The city cheered their heroes, grateful for their bravery and quick thinking. "We're like underwater superheroes," Sam exclaimed, as they basked in the success of their mission. As they returned to the surface, Dan, Sam, and Steve were greeted as heroes once again. The city hailed them for their courage and selflessness, honoring them with a parade. "This feels like the ending of an epic game, with us as the victorious heroes," Dan remarked, overwhelmed by the reception. As the excitement died down, Dan, Sam, and Steve took a moment to reflect on their journey. They realized that their adventures had not only tested their skills but also strengthened their friendship. "We've been through so much together, and we've always had each other's backs," Steve said, grateful for his friends. As they returned to the fire station, Dan, Sam, and Steve knew that their adventures were far from over. With each new day came new challenges, but they faced them with courage and determination, knowing that together, they were unstoppable. The Flame Warriors were always prepared for the next adventure, ready to protect their city and each other. One day, a malfunctioning robot in the city's tech district started causing chaos, setting buildings ablaze with its malfunctioning flamethrower. Dan, Sam, and Steve were called in to handle the situation. "Looks like we're dealing with a fiery robot boss," Sam exclaimed, gearing up for the challenge. As they arrived at the tech district, they were met with the sight of the rampaging robot, its flames wreaking havoc. "Time to put an end to this mechanical madness," Dan shouted, leading the charge. The trio dodged the robot's attacks, using their skills to outmaneuver the mechanical menace. Despite their best efforts, the robot seemed invincible. "We need to rethink our strategy," Steve said. As they retreated to a safe distance, they observed the robot's patterns, looking for a weakness they could exploit. Armed with a new plan, Dan, Sam, and Steve launched a coordinated attack on the robot. "Let's show this tin can who's boss," Sam yelled, as they unleashed a barrage of water on the robot. With precise timing and teamwork, they managed to disable the robot, saving the tech district from further destruction. As they returned to the fire station, Dan, Sam, and Steve were greeted as heroes once again. The city hailed them for their bravery and ingenuity, grateful for their quick thinking. "We're like the Avengers, but with water hoses, Dan joked, as they celebrated their victory. After a long day of battling fires and robots, Dan, Sam, and Steve finally had a moment to relax. They sat in the fire station, reminiscing about their adventures. "We've been through so much together, and we've always come out on top," Steve said, grateful for his friends. As they enjoyed their moment of rest, a new call came in. Another fire had broken out in the city, and Dan, Sam, and Steve were needed once again. With a renewed sense of purpose, they geared up and headed out, ready to face whatever challenges awaited them. As they arrived at the scene of the fire, Dan, Sam, and Steve knew that their adventures were far from over. With each new day came new challenges, but they faced them with courage and determination, knowing that together, they were unstoppable. The Flame Warriors were always prepared for the next adventure, ready to protect their city and each other. One night, a call came in about a fire at a mysterious warehouse on the outskirts of town. Dan, Sam, and Steve were intrigued by the unusual location and raced to the scene. As they arrived, they were met with a massive blaze, engulfing the warehouse in flames. "This is no ordinary fire," Dan said, sensing something amiss. As they battled the flames, they noticed strange symbols painted on the walls of the warehouse. "This looks like some kind of ritualistic fire," Sam observed, pointing to the symbols. They realized that the fire was no accident but a deliberate act. Dan, Sam, and Steve worked tirelessly to extinguish the fire and prevent it from spreading to nearby buildings. The heat was intense, and the flames seemed to fight back.
I'm happy to see you again, my friends. It is me, Pro from Minecraft. My friend Noob made very cool fire station, but I will try to build it even more interesting. And while I do this, I will continue to tell you exciting story about brave fire rescuers. Also press like button on this video and subscribe to the channel. Let's start building. We've got to contain this fire before it's too late, Steve shouted, as they pushed forward with determination. As they battled the blaze, they heard footsteps approaching from behind. Turning around, they saw a figure standing in the shadows, watching them. "Who are you?" Dan called out, wary of the stranger. The figure stepped forward, revealing themselves to be the one behind the arson. To their shock, the arsonist revealed that they were a disgruntled former employee of the warehouse, seeking revenge for being fired. "I never expected this to happen," Sam said, stunned by the revelation. Despite the betrayal, Dan, Sam, and Steve remained focused on extinguishing the fire and bringing the arsonist to justice. After hours of battling the blaze, Dan, Sam, and Steve finally managed to extinguish the fire. The warehouse was badly damaged, but they had prevented it from spreading further. As they surveyed the scene, they reflected on the events of the night and the danger they had faced. As dawn broke, Dan, Sam, and Steve stood outside the warehouse, watching as firefighters continued to douse the smoldering remains. Despite the challenges they had faced, they knew that their work was far from over. With a renewed sense of purpose, they vowed to protect their city from any threat, no matter how dangerous. The Flame Warriors were always ready for the next adventure, knowing that together, they could overcome anything. A series of mysterious fires began to break out across the city, all with the same eerie pattern. Each fire seemed to be set by an invisible force, leaving investigators baffled. Dan, Sam, and Steve were called in to investigate the strange phenomenon. As they patrolled the city, they noticed a strange figure lurking in the shadows near the scene of the fires. Could it be an invisible arsonist? Sam wondered aloud. Determined to catch the culprit, they set a trap, using thermal imaging cameras to detect any heat signatures. One night, as they waited in ambush, they spotted the figure approaching a building. With a signal, they sprang into action, surrounding the figure. To their surprise, it was a person wearing a suit made of thermal-resistant material, making them appear invisible to the naked eye. The person revealed themselves to be a disgruntled scientist who had developed the technology to become invisible, seeking revenge for being fired from their job. They had set out to terrorize the city. "You're like a villain from a sci-fi game," Dan exclaimed, as they apprehended the culprit. With the mastermind behind bars, the city was safe once again. Dan, Sam, and Steve were hailed as heroes, their quick thinking and bravery saving the day. As they returned to the fire station, they knew that their adventures as flame warriors were far from over, ready to face whatever challenges came their way. Just as they thought the city was safe, a new threat emerged. A group of hackers had gained control of the city's fire suppression systems, causing chaos across the city. Dan, Sam, and Steve were called in to stop the hackers and prevent a citywide disaster. As they traced the source of the hack, they realized that the hackers were using a network of drones to spread the fires. With the help of a skilled hacker friend, they managed to infiltrate the hackers' network and shut down the drones, saving the city from destruction. The events of the cyber attack taught Dan, Sam, and Steve the importance of cybersecurity in modern firefighting. They worked with city officials to strengthen the city's defenses against future attacks, ensuring that they were always one step ahead of any threat. As they reflected on their adventures, Dan, Sam, and Steve realized that they had become more than just firefighters. They were symbols of hope and bravery, inspiring others to stand up against adversity. The Flame Warriors' legacy would live on, a testament to the power of courage and friendship. A series of mysterious fires began to break out across the city, all with the same eerie pattern. Each fire seemed to be set by an invisible force, leaving investigators baffled. Dan, Sam, and Steve were called in to investigate the strange phenomenon. As they patrolled the city, they noticed a strange figure lurking in the shadows near the scene of the fires. Could it be an invisible arsonist? Sam wondered aloud. Determined to catch the culprit, they set a trap, using thermal imaging cameras to detect any heat signatures. One night, as they waited in ambush, they spotted the figure approaching a building with a signal. They sprang into action, surrounding the figure. To their surprise, it was a person wearing a suit made of thermal-resistant material, making them appear invisible to the naked eye. The person revealed themselves to be a disgruntled scientist who had developed the technology to become invisible, seeking revenge for being fired from their job. They had set out to terrorize the city. "You're like a villain from a sci-fi game," Dan exclaimed, as they apprehended the culprit. With the mastermind behind bars, the city was safe once again. Dan, Sam, and Steve were hailed as heroes, their quick thinking and bravery saving the day. As they returned to the fire station, they knew that their adventures as flame warriors were far from over, ready to face whatever challenges came their way. Just as they thought the city was safe, a new threat emerged. A group of hackers had gained control of the city's fire suppression systems, causing chaos across the city. Dan, Sam, and Steve were called in to stop the hackers and prevent a citywide disaster. As they traced the source of the hack, they realized that the hackers were using a network of drones to spread the fires. With the help of a skilled hacker friend, they managed to infiltrate the hackers' network and shut down the drones, saving the city from destruction. The events of the cyber attack taught Dan, Sam, and Steve the importance of cybersecurity in modern firefighting. They worked with city officials to strengthen the city's defenses against future attacks, ensuring that they were always one step ahead of any threat. As they reflected on their adventures, Dan, Sam, and Steve realized that they had become more than just firefighters. They were symbols of hope and bravery, inspiring others to stand up against adversity. The Flame Warriors' legacy would live on, a testament to the power of courage and friendship. Despite their successes, a shadowy figure emerged from the depths of the city, setting off a chain of fires that threatened to consume everything in their path. Dan, Sam, and Steve were called to the scene, where they found themselves face to face with their most dangerous adversary yet. The figure revealed themselves to be a former firefighter turned arsonist. Seeking revenge for perceived injustices, "You may have extinguished my fires, but you'll never extinguish my rage," the arsonist declared, unleashing a wave of flames. Dan, Sam, and Steve fought bravely, using all their skills and cunning to contain the fires and apprehend the arsonist. The battle raged on, the flames dancing around them like a malevolent force. "This is it, boys, our ultimate test," Dan shouted, rallying his teammates. Despite the arsonist's best efforts, they were no match for the combined strength and determination of the Flame Warriors. With a final, heroic effort, Dan, Sam, and Steve managed to subdue the arsonist and extinguish the fires, saving the city from destruction. As they returned to the fire station, Dan, Sam, and Steve were hailed as true heroes, their bravery and selflessness celebrated by the city. "We couldn't have done it without each other," Sam said, as they reflected on their journey. The city held a parade in their honor, with banners and cheers filling the streets. Dan, Sam, and Steve rode through the city on the fire truck, waving to the crowds. They knew that their adventures as flame warriors had come to an end, but their legacy would live on, inspiring others to follow in their footsteps. As they stood atop the fire truck, Looking out at the city they had saved, Dan, Sam, and Steve knew that a new chapter was beginning. They had faced unimaginable challenges and overcome them with courage and determination as they rode off into the sunset. They knew that no matter what the future held, they would always be flame warriors at heart. As the years passed, Dan, Sam, and Steve retired from firefighting, content in the knowledge that they had left the city safer than they found it. They remained close friends, often regaling their families with tales of their adventures as flame warriors. Their story became a legend in the city, with children growing up hearing about the brave firefighters who had saved the city from disaster time and time again. Dan, Sam, and Steve became symbols of courage and heroism, their names synonymous with hope. As they grew older, Dan, Sam, and Steve knew that it was time to pass the torch to a new generation of firefighters. They mentored young recruits, sharing their wisdom and experience. "It's up to you now to keep the city safe," Dan said, his eyes filled with pride. The new generation of firefighters looked up to Dan, Sam, and Steve as role models. Eager to follow in their footsteps, they trained tirelessly, knowing that they had big shoes to fill. The Flame Warriors had set a high standard, one that they were determined to uphold. One day, a new threat emerged, one that the city had never faced before. A series of earthquakes rocked the city, causing widespread devastation. Dan, Sam, and Steve knew that their city needed them once again. Despite their age, they donned their gear and headed out into the chaos. The fires caused by the earthquakes were unlike anything they had seen before, but they tackled them with the same determination and courage that had defined their careers. As they battled the flames, a building collapsed, trapping several people inside. Without hesitation, Dan, Sam, and Steve rushed to the rescue, digging through the rubble with the strength of their convictions. After hours of effort, they managed to rescue the trapped individuals, saving them from certain death. As they emerged from the rubble, covered in soot and sweat, the city cheered for their heroes once again. As they returned to the fire station for the final time, Dan, Sam, and Steve knew that their days as firefighters were over. They had faced countless challenges, saved countless lives, and left a legacy that would never be forgotten. The city honored them with a ceremony, officially retiring their gear and thanking them for their years of service. As they looked out at the city they had protected for so long, they knew that their legacy would live on, inspiring future generations to be brave and selfless in the face of danger. As Dan, Sam, and Steve settled into retirement, they knew that their story was far from over. Their legacy would live on in the hearts of those they had saved, and in the stories told to future generations. They had been flame warriors, and nothing could extinguish the fire of heroism that burned within them. Years passed, and the city prospered under the watchful eye of the new generation of firefighters. Dan, Sam, and Steve had settled into retirement, but their bond remained as strong as ever. One day, they received an invitation to a firefighter reunion. Excited to see their old comrades, Dan, Sam, and Steve eagerly attended the reunion. They were greeted with cheers and applause, their fellow firefighters happy to see them. As they swapped stories and reminisced about their adventures, they knew that their legacy as flame warriors would never be forgotten. During the reunion, a series of fires broke out across the city, all with the same modus operandi as the earlier arsonists they had faced. Dan, Sam, and Steve knew that they had to spring into action once again. Despite their age, they suited up and joined the firefighting efforts. The arsonist had grown bolder, setting fires in multiple locations simultaneously. Dan, Sam, and Steve split up, each tackling a different fire with the same determination and skill that had defined their careers. As they battled the flames, they realized that the arsonist had set a trap. Several buildings were rigged to explode, threatening to cause even more devastation. "We've got to evacuate the area," Steve shouted as they worked to get people to safety. With the help of the new generation of firefighters, they managed to evacuate the area just in time. The buildings exploded, but thanks to their quick thinking, there were no casualties. The arsonist, however, had managed to escape once again. Determined to bring the arsonist to justice, Dan, Sam, and Steve set out to track them down. Through careful investigation, they managed to locate the arsonist's hideout and confront them once and for all. A fierce battle ensued, with the arsonist using every trick in the book to evade capture. But Dan, Sam, and Steve were relentless, using their experience and skill to outmaneuver the arsonist. In the end, they managed to subdue the arsonist and bring them to justice, ending their reign of terror once and for all. With the arsonist behind bars, Dan, Sam, and Steve knew that their days as firefighters were truly over. They retired once again, this time knowing that they had truly earned their rest.
Hello friends, it's me, Hacker from Minecraft. My friend Pro have made some very interesting fire station build, but we should show them how professional hackers build it, and while I'm building, I'll continue to tell you the breathtaking story. Don't forget to press like button on this video and subscribe to the channel. Let's go! The city honored them with a ceremony, thanking them for their years of service and bravery. As they looked out at the city one last time, they knew that their legacy would live on forever. They had been flame warriors, and nothing could extinguish the fire of heroism that burned within them. As Dan, Sam, and Steve settled into retirement for the second time, they knew that their legacy would continue to inspire future generations. The city erected a statue in their honor, depicting them in their firefighting gear, a symbol of courage and heroism. The new generation of firefighters looked up to Dan, Sam, and Steve as role models, striving to emulate their bravery and dedication. The Flame Warrior story became part of the city's folklore, passed down from generation to generation. Despite their retirement, Dan, Sam, and Steve's adventures were not over yet. One day, a massive wildfire threatened to engulf the city, and the new generation of firefighters needed their help. Without hesitation, Dan, Sam, and Steve joined the firefighting efforts, determined to save their city one last time. The wildfire was unlike anything they had ever seen, spreading rapidly and consuming everything in its path. But Dan, Sam, and Steve were undaunted, using all their skills and experience to contain the blaze and protect the city they loved. After hours of battling the wildfire, Dan, Sam, and Steve emerged victorious, having saved the city from certain destruction. The new generation of firefighters looked on in awe, grateful for the wisdom and courage of their predecessors. As they watched the flames die down, Dan, Sam, and Steve knew that their days as flame warriors were truly over. They had faced countless challenges and overcome them all, leaving behind a legacy that would never be forgotten. As Dan, Sam, and Steve sat together, watching the sunset over the city, they knew that their time had come to an end. They had lived a life of adventure and heroism, and now it was time to rest. With a final salute to the city they had served so faithfully, Dan, Sam, and Steve bid farewell to their firefighting days. They knew that wherever they went, they would always be flame warriors at heart, ready to face any challenge that came their way. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm glow over the city, Dan, Sam, and Steve knew that a new chapter was beginning. They had been flame warriors, and nothing could extinguish the fire of heroism that burned within them. The city would always be safe, knowing that the Flame Warriors had once protected it with all their hearts. After their final adventure, Dan, Sam, and Steve retired to a quiet life, but their legacy lived on. The city continued to honor them, celebrating Flame Warrior Day every year to commemorate their bravery and selflessness. The statue erected in their honor became a place of pilgrimage for firefighters from around the world, who came to pay their respects to the legendary Flame Warriors. Dan, Sam, and Steve's story became a source of inspiration for countless people, showing them that courage and friendship could overcome any obstacle. Inspired by the tales of Dan, Sam, and Steve, a new generation of firefighters rose up. Ready to protect the city with the same bravery and dedication, they trained tirelessly, knowing that they had a legacy to uphold. The new Flame Warriors faced their own challenges, from raging wildfires to technological disasters. But they faced them with the same spirit as their predecessors, Dan, Sam, and Steve's legacy lived on in them, a testament to the enduring power of heroism and friendship. Years passed, and Dan, Sam, and Steve's story became legend. One day, the city decided to honor them with a special reunion, inviting firefighters from around the world to celebrate their legacy. Dan, Sam, and Steve were reunited with old friends and comrades, sharing stories and memories of their adventures. They knew that their time as firefighters was over, but they were proud of the legacy they had left behind. As the reunion came to an end, Dan, Sam, and Steve stood together one last time, looking out at the city they had protected for so long. They knew that their time as Flame Warriors was over, but their spirit would live on forever. With a final salute to the city and to each other, Dan, Sam, and Steve bid farewell to their firefighting days. They walked off into the sunset, their heads held high, knowing that they had been true heroes in every sense of the word. As the years passed, the Flame Warrior story became legend, inspiring future generations to be brave and selfless in the face of danger. The city never forgot the courage and sacrifice of Dan, Sam, and Steve, and their legacy lived on in the hearts of all who knew their story. As the city continued to prosper, the need for firefighters grew. and a new generation of flame warriors emerged. Among them were Maria, a skilled paramedic who joined the team to provide medical assistance during emergencies, and Carlos, a fearless firefighter known for his expertise in handling hazardous materials. Maria's first call came in the form of a major car accident on the highway, with multiple vehicles involved and several people injured. She rushed to the scene alongside her fellow flame warriors, ready to provide aid to those in need. With her quick thinking and medical skills, Maria helped stabilize the injured until they could be transported to the hospital. Her calm demeanor and compassionate care earned her the respect of her teammates and the gratitude of those she helped. Meanwhile, Carlos underwent specialized training in handling hazardous materials, preparing him for the unique challenges he would face as a flame warrior. His training involved learning how to identify and contain dangerous substances, as well as how to protect himself and others from harm. His first test came when a chemical plant caught fire, releasing toxic fumes into the air. Carlos sprang into action, working alongside his teammates to extinguish the fire and prevent further contamination. His bravery and expertise were instrumental in bringing the situation under control, just as the new flame warriors were settling into their roles. A new challenge emerged in the form of a series of wildfires that threatened to engulf the city. The fires spread rapidly, fueled by strong winds and dry conditions, posing a serious threat to homes and businesses. The flame warriors, both old and new, worked tirelessly to contain the fires, battling the flames day and night. Maria's medical skills were put to the test as she treated firefighters and civilians injured in the blaze, while Carlos used his expertise to identify and neutralize hazardous materials that were fueling the fires. After days of relentless effort, the flame warriors managed to contain the wildfires, saving countless lives and homes in the process. The city hailed them as heroes, grateful for their bravery and dedication in the face of adversity. As Maria, Carlos, and their fellow flame warriors stood amidst the smoldering ruins of the wildfires, they knew that they had proven themselves worthy successors to Dan, Sam, and Steve. Their legacy would live on in the hearts of those they had saved, inspiring future generations to be brave and selfless in the face of danger. With the wildfires extinguished and the city safe once again, Maria, Carlos, and the rest of the flame warriors looked to the future. They knew that their work was never done, and they were ready to face whatever challenges came their way. As they returned to the fire station, they were greeted with cheers and applause from their fellow firefighters and the community. The mayor presented them with medals of honor, recognizing their bravery and dedication in the face of danger. As the flame warriors continued their work, a new member joined their team, Alex, a young firefighter with a passion for helping others. Alex quickly proved himself to be a valuable asset to the team, with his quick thinking and bravery earning him the respect of his teammates. With Alex's addition to the team, the Flame Warriors were stronger than ever, ready to face any challenge that came their way. Together, they patrol the city, ready to respond to any emergency, no matter how big or small. One day, a massive earthquake struck the city, causing widespread devastation. Buildings collapsed, fires broke out, and people were trapped in the rubble. The Flame Warriors were called into action, ready to save lives and restore order. Maria, Carlos, Alex, and the rest of the Flame Warriors worked tirelessly, rescuing trapped civilians, extinguishing fires, and providing medical aid to the injured. Despite the chaos and danger, they never wavered, knowing that the city was counting on them. After days of hard work, the city began to recover from the earthquake. Thanks to the efforts of the Flame Warriors, the damage was minimized, and the city was able to rebuild stronger than ever. The Flame Warriors were hailed as heroes once again, their bravery and dedication shining through in the darkest of times. As they stood amidst the rubble, they knew that their work was far from over, but they were ready to face whatever challenges came their way, knowing that they were the Flame Warriors, guardians of the city's safety. As the city began to rebuild, the Flame Warriors remained vigilant, knowing that the aftermath of a disaster could be just as challenging as the disaster itself. They worked tirelessly, helping with the cleanup efforts and providing support to those who had lost everything. Maria, Carlos, Alex, and the rest of the Flame Warriors were a beacon of hope in the midst of the chaos, inspiring others to lend a helping hand. Together, they showed that no matter how difficult the circumstances, the human spirit could overcome even the greatest challenges.
Well, what cool buildings my friends have made. I like them very much. And you? I hope so too. I should also show them how to make a fire station building. Well, at the same time, I will continue the story. Just as the city was beginning to recover, a new threat emerged in the form of a series of arson attacks. Buildings across the city were set ablaze, spreading fear and confusion among the residents. The Flame Warriors knew that they had to act quickly to catch the arsonist before more damage could be done. Maria, Carlos, Alex, and the rest of the Flame Warriors worked tirelessly to track down the arsonist. They combed through security footage, interviewed witnesses, and analyzed evidence, determined to bring the culprit to justice. Their efforts paid off when they finally identified the arsonist and apprehended them before they could strike again. The city breathed a sigh of relief, grateful for the bravery and dedication of the Flame Warriors. As the city returned to normalcy, the Flame Warriors took a moment to reflect on all they had accomplished. They had faced wildfires, earthquakes, and arson attacks, yet they had never wavered in their commitment to protecting the city and its residents. Maria, Carlos, Alex, and the rest of the Flame Warriors knew that their work was far from over, but they also knew that they were prepared for whatever challenges lay ahead. Together, they stood strong, ready to face the future as the guardians of the city's safety. As time passed, the Flame Warriors' story became legend, inspiring future generations of firefighters to be brave and selfless in the face of danger.